Welcome to this fifth episode of Death Row Stories. A few weeks ago, I was in Austin. I already shared the discussion I filmed about the extreme heat in Texas prisons, featuring a director I admire, Richard Linklater. If you haven't seen it, please do. It's very insightful. I also filmed another fascinating panel presented by the Texas Monthly. It covered the story of Kerry Max Cook, who spent 22 years on Texas death row. In June 2024, just a few months ago, he was declared officially innocent by the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals. The murder he was accused of took place 47 years ago, almost to the day. And Kerry Max Cook was here in person. To be honest, I came because I wanted to meet him, and today I'm happy to share a bit of his story with you.
A lot of people have been mistreated in the Texas criminal justice system, but few have struggled longer or harder to get justice than Kerry Max Cook. From 1978 to 1999, he was tried 3 times for the murder of Linda Jo Edwards and Tyler, and almost a 4th time. Constantly proclaiming his innocence, he spent almost 2 decades on death row where, a gentle soul, he was brutalized by other inmates. He was freed on bond in 1997 after the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals, citing police misconduct, tossed the verdict. He spent the last 25 years trying to overturn his verdict and receive a ruling of actual innocence, which is a very high legal bar requiring new evidence. He sometimes fought against his own lawyers, whom he didn't think took his case seriously enough. And when I wrote about him in 2017, he seemed to be adrift in a sea of despair. But on June 19th, 2024, at 9 a.m., the CCA, just down the road from here, granted his writ of habeas corpus and declared Kerry Max Cook actually innocent, exonerating him. When I called you at 9:03 that morning, you were weeping. You had gone to the CCA's hand-down page, like you'd done every single day for 8 years, and seen that the court had finally ruled in your favor. Now, you were in the ICU of a hospital, about to get life-threatening surgery. What was going on in your head?
I was shocked. I had a heart attack before. In 2015, I had triple bypass surgery. It was a stress. It was a fight against Smith County. It's always been the fight against Smith County because I had a murder conviction. I couldn't pass by a school. I couldn't rent an apartment. I couldn't get a job. I spoke internationally, overcoming adversity, and that became my career. But when Michael called me shortly after 9 a.m., it was a Wednesday, and I was telling Sandra when she was trying to take me to the hospital, Kerry, I think you had a stroke. I said, it doesn't matter. It's Wednesday. I got to check my phone first. And she said, no, she took my phone away from me. And the nurses, all the doctors are telling me, no, Mr. Cook, you have to have it. You're in serious trouble. And so Sandra leans over the bed. They've got me strapped down so I won't get up and try to leave. And she leans the phone over. She said, Kerry, it's Michael Hall. They just reversed your case. I said, no, not a new trial, Sandra. I don't want another new trial. No. She said, no, Kerry, they found you actually innocent. So there's no words. You know, we always use that phrase. There's nothing that could describe a situation. If you knew me and you knew my journey of never giving up, teaching that to kids and adults, then maybe you'd understand how this was the biggest shock of all, because I knew I was innocent and I knew the facts that I was innocent. But each court decision I'd ever had manipulated the truth, suppressed the truth, hid the truth. And so I thought, I'm going to die without this story ever being told. So when Michael Hall called me and told me, and all the nurses in the entire almost hospital came in the room before they wheeled me in there because they heard me talking to Michael Hall, I can tell you that part. And congratulations, Mr. Cook. You're a hero in Herman Memorial Hospital. And so I tell Michael, you're not making this up. I mean, and I knocked on wood. They're trying to say, wake me up. This is not real. And I went under. I went to anesthesia. Said, Mr. Cook, I'm going to have to put you under now. It's going to be okay. You promise I'm going to wake up? Just let me spend 1 hour of this freedom. I've never been exonerated. It's been 47 years. I want to see my wife and my son. I got to talk to them. I want to talk to my lawyers. And he said, you'll be okay, Mr. Cook. Calm down. Your heart rate's rising. Calm down. And then he put me under. And when I woke up, I wanted to make sure I was alive. So I pinched myself there with Sandra, Kerry, and my ex-lawyer, Paul Nugent, and his wife, Mary, who represented me in 2 capital murder trials. He's the one who got the hung jury. And so when I came through, I thought, was it a dream? No, Kerry, you've been exonerated by 7-2. I went, oh my God. So it's one of those situations where no matter how many times I think about it, it was so surrealistic that at times I couldn't believe it was really real. I had to keep asking her, Sandra, is it really true? You're innocent, Kerry. The Court of Criminal Appeals said so. Michael Hall told you. And so it's one of those situations where I'll never forget it, and I'll always think of you in that moment because you called me at like 9:03. You didn't know I was in a hospital bed about to go in this life-threatening surgery. I said, I gotta go now, Michael. I'll talk to you later. I hope, Okay, Kerry.
Back in 2016, the state made a deal with your lawyers, with the Innocence Project, to set aside your conviction, but not push for actual innocence. The lawyers felt that such a deal, which required that they drop accusations of prosecutorial misconduct, was too good to pass up. Compromise is sometimes necessary, as lawyers know, but you were furious, and you wanted to fight for complete exoneration and all or nothing struggle, and you fired your attorneys. You fired Barry Scheck. So now Barry Scheck called you after this happened, and what did Barry Scheck tell you?
I answered, I said, hello, and he said, you were right. You did the right thing, Kerry. You were right. He said he respected me more than any client he ever had because I was willing to die for the truth. I still am to this day. We all go through life. All of us will face a situation that it deserves standing up to it. And I'm a man who's made a lot of sacrifices in the Texas criminal justice system. I refuse to settle, always, no matter what. I could go free, but I had to settle. I'd rather go back to Texas death row and be executed. And I made those decisions with my lawyer, Paul Nugent. Well, it was always about truth, justice, and accountability. I know that's impossible in most cases and all that, but what they did to me, they done to others, and someone had to stand up to that. Some things are worth dying for, and this has always been one of those things for me. So when my lawyers, the Innocence Project of Texas, went behind my back and exonerated the prosecutors to give me just a new trial and not fight for actual innocence, you're fired. Kerry, do you realize what you're doing? I more than realize what I'm doing. Like I told Paul Nugent in 1992, some things are worth dying for, and this is one of them. I want accountability.
On the far end, we have Keith Hampton, who is Kerry's criminal lawyer. Next to him is Anand Swaminathan, who is Kerry's civil lawyer. And then Sandy Pressey, who is Kerry's longtime wife and mother of their child, Kerry Justice. Judge Burt Richardson of the quite conservative Court of Criminal Appeals, which ruled in your favor 7-2, wrote, this case is riddled with allegations of state misconduct, Brady violations, proof of false testimony, admissions of perjury, and new scientific evidence. The opinion laid out the Byzantine nature of the decades-long persecution you suffered at the hands of Smith County law enforcement. You guys, you lawyers, why do you think Smith County had it so hard in for this guy? Smith County is up in northeast Texas. It's where Tyler is.
Yeah, far east Texas, right there next to Louisiana. That was a well-written opinion. It's a 106-page opinion. It had to be because he was prosecuted for 40 years. How else do you tell the story? And he had, it's 40 years worth of stuff. So it's not just every form of prosecutorial misconduct that is imaginable, that is even defined in the law. It's repetition over a very long period of time, year after year, decade after decade.
Trial after trial.
Trial after trial, even after their mistrial, and a threat of a fourth one. Would not give up, double down. That's their whole MO. The reason that I think that they went after a 19-year-old Kerry Max Cook, in order for me to write the document that was needed at the CCA, I had to do two things. One was figure this out, and how do I tell it in a cogent way? And I think I didn't want it more than 50 pages, and I think that's about what it was. And the story, the abbreviated version is this. This was in 1977, and if you listen to the tapes, if you read, listening to the tapes is the most amazing thing during the course of the investigation. You feel like you're in the 1950s in Mississippi. It's absolutely bizarre. And what happened was they went to, this was a community with law enforcement that depended on two things. One was a quack psychologist, the other, who they took as the absolute expert, and it skewed their investigation from there. The other was a desire to get rid of the undesirables of lovely Smith County. The undesirable, this was very sexual, actually, because the expert said, what you're looking for is this murder of this 20-year-old young woman. The murderer is either a lesbian or a man who's conflicted with his sexuality. So that removed the actual killer, who was a pillar of the society in his 40s, running the library service at the local university. So he got cleared. He was the one, he figured that out. He's the one that came up with the book and staging the crime scene and all of that. And it fed into this whole theory, oh my God, we've got a Jack the Ripper here. And so from then on, they built salacious, totally made up, out of thin air, the most amazing, phony lies that they could to make it worse and worse and worse, that he's a monster. And so that's the story of his case. And that's how I wrote it, and that's the way I see it. So that's what happened to him.
Judge Richardson, it took 8 years, but he researched the case from top to bottom, and he's a hero to me. I mean, I don't know of any judge in America that had the courage to do what he did. And he found me actually innocent in a record that a deal with the Innocence Project had crippled my case on actual innocence. But he overlooked that, looked at the facts, the details, and Keith Hampton's motions, writing about the case, similar to what he told you guys a while ago, saying what was a lie, Smith County profiling me as homosexual, and that made me a murderer. And so when he told me that, my hope came back, and it never left me.
What I see are the similarities between Kerry's case and the many other cases that happen like this around the country. And before I say that, it's important to say Kerry's case is so unbelievably unique. I mean, it is exceptional for the level of vitriol that has been spewed at him by the justice system in Smith County. And it is unique for the amount of time, 47 years, that this fight lasted.
Had you heard about Kerry's case up in Chicago?
Yeah, I mean, really anybody who practices innocence work around the country has heard about Kerry's case. And so when we had heard from Kerry, when he reached out more than a decade ago, we knew right away about his case. But to be honest, until I dug into the facts of the case, I had no idea just how horrible the facts were in his case. But at the same time that Kerry's case is really exceptional, and Kerry's suffering is exceptional, and it has to be honored in its own way, his case is so common in other ways, right? The dynamics that result in a wrongful conviction like Kerry's, the dynamics that result in the fabrication of evidence so many times in his case, and then the doubling down and tripling down and quadrupling down when the case gets thrown out. There was an opportunity to stop and do the right thing. There were so many opportunities in his case to get off this moving train of injustice and to reroute the course, right? To stop this train. And instead, at every one of those instances, new, fabricated, crazy evidence came out of nowhere, right? And that goes to really one of the pieces that's at the heart of all wrongful conviction cases, which is somebody has to make a decision. Maybe not even because they're the worst person on earth, but because in their mind, they've convinced themselves of a thing. There's a form of cognitive bias going on with some of these investigators, and they decide, well, I could admit we did something wrong, or I could show a witness a set of photos and maybe tap on one of the photos and see if they'll identify that photo. I could maybe push the science, and maybe I could get this fingerprint analyst. This is what happened in Kerry's case. Maybe I can get the fingerprint analyst to make up a completely junk opinion, which is that I can tell you that the fingerprints that were left on this door are an exact number of hours old by eyeballing the fingerprints, completely made up, right? This is the kind of evidence that turns up, but it turns up because somebody knows there's a weakness in the case. And instead of saying that weakness should cause me to reconsider and question some of the decisions that we've made, maybe consider the obvious suspect who was the lover of the victim and been seen in the house that night, let me continue the case against Kerry and let me develop new fabricated evidence to cement my case, right? Those are the choices that somebody has to make. And those choices were made over and over and over again in Kerry's case. And I have the decision in my hand. The number of times in this decision, they point out a piece of evidence that suddenly came out of nowhere, years later, decades later, that is absurd, just absurd on its face, is unbelievable.
I was an Army brat. I came from a very conservative family. So I'm sitting on death row, and I'm trying to understand, how does an innocent person, man or woman, get to death row? And what I'm about to tell you, I hope it shocks every one of you to the core, because you'll always hear about wrongful convictions. There's a one in Texas the other day, Ben Spencer was actually declared innocent. They're just all the time now. It's not a phenomenon anymore. We're no longer unicorns, you know. I mean, it's happened so much. Why does it happen? I got a way to tell you very clearly, very succinctly how it happens. And I want all of you to remember this. In 1976, the United States Supreme Court, in a case cited as Embler versus Patchett, write that down, see it for yourself, ruled that prosecutors, all 50 states, have what's called absolute immunity. And let me define that to you, and I challenge every one of you to look on your phone and see it yourself. Prosecutors are immune even when they fabricate evidence, convict someone innocent, suborn perjury. Outrageous misconduct is the way it's stated. No matter how outrageous the misconduct, they're immune from prosecution. I asked you as you sit there, if you were a lawyer, a prosecutor, and you knew you're running for election and you need this case, someone just committed a brutal murder, a child's involved, and you know you can get a conviction because no matter what you do, no matter what you make up, no matter what witness you get to life, say you confess in the jail cell when you're in solitary like me, they're immune from prosecution. You know what? This is America. That's a very scary thing to me. That scares the shit out of me.
When I did a story on you, 2016 or so, we took a picture of you. It was for the New York Times, and you were dressed all in black. And I asked you why you're dressed all in black, and you said you're going to wear black until you get exonerated. Now, the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals said you're actually innocent, and you're still wearing black. Why is that?
July 18th, 1978, I was just convicted by a jury. I was called a Hannibal Lecter virtuoso, homosexual. What does a homosexual want with women? Kill them, they're jealous. And I was humiliated. My mother's leaving the courtroom with her hand covering her face. She was so embarrassed. Well, the jailers in the sheriff's department, Smith County Sheriff's Department, is chaining me up to take me to death row. And I was putting the shackles on, crying. And there's my mom, dad, and brother on the second floor of the Smith County Courthouse. You got 30 seconds to say bye. And so I walk over in the chains, a few feet. My brother, Doyle Wayne, is crying. My mother's crying. I've never seen my father cry in my life, but tears are rolling down his face. I hug him in a football huddle, and I say, I'll never give up, Mom, Daddy, Doyle Wayne. I won't quit until I clear our name, because they lost their restaurant, they lost everything. I said, I'll never give up till I clear our name, no matter what they do to me. And I knew I was going to a male prison where they were going to brutalize the hell out of me because of what Smith County, I ate body parts. I mean, it was horrible what they did, and maintained it for 47 years. He had to still fight against it. He's reaching his last year in the court. And I said, I'll never give up no matter what they do to me. I didn't know it was going to last for 22 years. But so when Michael Hall came to Plano, Texas, and interviewed me, he said, what, you're a Johnny Cash fan? I said, no. This goes to the promise I made my mom, dad, and Doyle Wayne, dad. I went to death row. So the reason I'm wearing black today, and listen to this is shocking. It should be to everybody, no matter Republican, Democrat, it doesn't matter. All of us are human beings that deserve to be treated with fairness and honesty. I'm wearing black today because even though the highest court in Texas, probably the most conservative court in America, has found me to be actually innocent by a vote of 7-2, and said it in a 106-page decision that this was one of the worst cases in American history, I'm still not exonerated. What? What do you mean? I'm not exonerated because Smith County is refusing to drop the charges and dismiss the indictment. I'm still at risk of being tried despite the order. So I'm wearing black today because of that. But if you notice, I'm wearing a red feather in my hat. That red feather represents the passion that I've had for 47 years. The inmates couldn't kill me. Smith County couldn't kill me. Texas couldn't execute me. The reason is because of the passion, the sacrifices I made for that promise, my mom, dad, and my brother. And the feather represents the passion, but it also reflects the respect, the enormous respect for Judge Burt Richardson, who had the courage to do what no judge had ever done. If you took a deep dive, the goggles would come off and you'd see the truth, and he did it. So the red feather reflects the respect I have for Judge Richardson and the Court of Criminal Appeals for doing the right thing, because it took a lot of courage. Them not dropping the charges, dismissing the indictment, leaving that over my head, it's caused my stroke. It's caused my heart surgery. It's caused me to lose my hearing, lose my voice. And so the reason it matters to me is not just about me. Believe it or not, it's about you, your kids. It's about people in Texas. What happened to me can happen to you. You don't think about it till it does. But that's the reason I stand up and fight. I've made those sacrifices, and nothing's going to make me give up, not even going back to the ICU. And even if I don't come out of it, you'll know the truth. You'll know why. There's a cost for this standing up to Smith County.
I immediately emailed the judge after the exoneration with a order of dismissal of the underlying indictment. And the response was strange. I gave it a few days. I did it again. Asked for the elected DA's response. He said he had no, as I understood it, no opposition. So encouraged the judge again. Well, fast forward to today, and everything else has been radio silent. Nothing, no responses to my emails. So, and this is a weirdly weird county. I am sorry that I came on this case as late as I did. In part, if you read the opinion, note the objections by the dissent. I think his case would have been 9-0. I think everyone would agree on his innocence, because the facts that are in the dissent are refutable and were refutable a long time ago, like the fingerprints. Those aren't his. But you wouldn't know that because it's not in the record. And I didn't get that record until I got brought onto the case. When I got brought onto the case, the first thing I checked for was to make sure all the items that had been identified in Smith County were transmitted and delivered to the Court of Criminal Appeals. So much of it was not, including those tapes. The tapes are phenomenal to listen to, unbelievable. You feel like you're in a time machine. Very strange stuff.
Wait, what are these tapes of?
The one that's most memorable is an investigator who is after the killer lesbian.
Jake Massey.
And he's looking for her. So he's got this, and you have to imagine this deep Mississippi kind of a drawl. And he's talking to the woman who is the apartment complex manager. He's asking about the roommate. Was she, did she have a lot of young male suitors? Did she date a lot? Did she wear jeans? Or did she like dresses? Would you say she was kind of a husky gal? Did she ride horses? I swear to God, it went on for 30 minutes. Like, what the hell, you know? I mean, it was stuff like that. And he's dead serious, which made it both creepy and funny at the same time. Yeah, he's asking many other questions, by the way, of, well, were there any other kind of pants that she might have worn? Because that's a telltale sign of a murderous lesbian. I'm telling you. In his head, evidently, he bought that. So stuff like that, the nuances of this evidence were so important. The way people put stuff, the sequence of the questions, all of that needed to get to the Court of Criminal Appeals. So guess what? I spent months. I did motions. I all but came down there and said, let me have the boxes, you know. I'll make a trip to Smith County. And I caught them. I caught them because they were so clumsy in their emails. So they'd keep me on an email thread and I'd get a loop. So she would have just lied to me on the phone, and I'll get right on that, Mr. Hampton. Thank you. Then I get the email. Hampton's looking for this. I'm like, I can see you. You just lied to me. Okay. November of last year. We are given none of this information until late January. Guess what? We just found a box, and the box just happens to have all the murder weapons, okay? In 1977, nobody's thinking of DNA or contamination of evidence, but guess what's snuggled up right next to the murder weapons? His shorts. And they're taking off. They're going to test this stuff with their labs. And the exoneration initiative, this was their thing. They knew exactly what to do. Glenn Garber, Rebecca Friedman, they jumped right in. They had the experts lined up, and the stuff was to be tested. It has still not. We've pointed out that's pointless. It's contaminated. If you find
Fabricated.
Yeah, you find stuff on his shorts, really? And we had thank God, there was a photograph from 1978 or 77, photograph, all of that stuff, right? One right on top of the other, you know? It's just classic contamination. It's pointless, and it's not going to get you anywhere because we already know who the killer is. It's clear as a bell.
I mean, this, just so it's totally clear, understand what Keith is saying here. They have a box. The box at the end of trial or sometime around that time back in the 70s, they take all his clothes that they confiscated, they take the murder weapon and the other stuff that they have from the crime scene, and they throw it all in a box. And then now they say, well, what if we test the clothes and there's DNA on it? It's just absurd, right? There's no chain of custody. There's none of those. But it gives you a sense of, to your question, even today, even with this 106-page decision from the Court of Criminal Appeals, there are people who still will insist, their mind cannot accept the idea that Kerry Max Cook could be innocent. And maybe just as much so, they cannot accept the idea that they and their criminal justice system in Smith County could have possibly made a mistake.
The knife was taken by the lead detective, Eddie Clark, as a souvenir from the police property room. He also took my hair, and the blood samples and other items. Well, that was in the box on top of the evidence. And so that we didn't get the knife back until we had to file a court order to get it. And even then, he had handled it. He'd used it in speaking engagements, he said. So the evidence is beyond a shadow of a doubt compromised, because right now it's a Hail Mary. We got to show this guy is guilty. It's the only way we can save these 4 or 5 generations of prosecutors who are all involved.
DNA evidence and crime scene evidence and physical evidence was tested over and over and over again in this case.
Out of that box too.
Back in the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. In fact, much of it was requested by him to be tested. He asked them to test evidence over and over again. So it's clear. All of the evidence, it's part of the Court of Criminal Appeals decision, all of the evidence was that not a single item matched Kerry Max Cook. They couldn't find a single item from that crime scene that matched Kerry Cook, despite how gruesome and brutal this murder was. So when we talk about the issue of this new testing or some new box they found. It is only the contamination of that evidence that is a problem. Otherwise, in every other instance, for 40 years, Kerry Max Cook has tried to test every possible piece of evidence he could to prove his innocence, and every one of those pieces of evidence has excluded him as the perpetrator.
And one last point I want to make. I said I wasn't going to talk about this. I kind of glossed over it a while ago, but the promise that I made to my mom, my daddy, and Joel Wayne to never give up. I didn't know that it would last 22 years or 47 years, but they're all dead now. My only brother was murdered, wrong place, wrong time. My dad died of colon cancer, and my mom left me on death row to die. She went insane. And the inmates brutalized me and as a sex offender. And every time I wanted to fight back, I said, no, Smith County's making up. They'll say I'm violent, I'm dangerous. My mom and dad and Joel Wayne, they lost everything. Kerry, running away from home, getting in trouble. I gotta get out. I gotta show her I've changed. I've learned my lesson. I'm awake now, I'm wide awake. And I let the inmates rape me. I let pedophiles do terrible things to me on death row. I let the guards mistreat me, didn't stand up to it. The whole point for that, I had such amazing complex PTSD. I beat up on myself, I punished myself. I'd say for years, Sandra, the only thing to make what I've sacrificed and had to do to survive Texas death row is exoneration. That's the only thing that's going to help me forgive myself. That's why dropping the charges and dismissing indictments so damn important, Keith, Anon.
Sandy's been such a big part of your life. A few weeks ago, you were telling me a great story how you looked at her. You've been going through all this stress with the case and with the surgery and all, and you looked at her and you started singing a song. Tell that story.
I don't know how this happened. It sounds so concocted that the average person would think it has to be made up. But then you have to understand what Sandra and I have gone through. We literally have one brain. And she'll say that to me. But here it is. We're walking down the road somewhere. I don't remember where. It was not long ago. And it was about Anon with the civil suit. It was about Keith Hampton with the Timco actual innocence. And how either one could change our lives. We live in a rundown apartment. We're so broke we can't even pay attention. And so we're walking, and she's always the positive one saying, Kerry, we're gonna be okay. We're gonna be okay. She works as a probation officer, so I'm still in law enforcement, but this time in a good way. But anyway, so we're going down the road. I don't know what she said. Maybe she will. I handed her the microphone. But I said, Sandra, we've gone through so much. How could any two people on earth ever be closer? And then I swear to God, I give my hand to God when I'm telling you. I said, I got you, babe, dun, 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 dun. And she, at the same time, not after I did it, but at the same time, I got you, babe. I said, that's not even real. Where's the camera when you need it? I was so shocked, but that's how close we really are. This woman is everything to me. If something happened to her, that's the only thing that could make me give up. The only thing.
How's Kerry Justice doing?
Well, our son, Kerry Justice Cook, he moved to Austin, Texas with his girlfriend. He never got to go to public school. He never got to enjoy the trappings of a normal kid. He's different. He's really different. And at times, maybe he blamed me because I wanted to protect him. I didn't put him in public school because I thought the kids would brutalize me. They accused me of eating body parts and being a sick woman killer. I couldn't trust the public with that. So I raised him in teenage leadership camps around the world that I was a keynote speaker at. And so he always wanted to go to, like Greg Kelly, he always wanted to go to the University of Texas at Austin. Even though we lived in New York, New Jersey, I moved out of Texas a long time ago. I'm back now. He would always, he resented the stuff that he didn't get. He said, Dad, I just want to be like everyone else. I want to go to college. So recently, he moved to Austin, Texas. He's at HCC, a lower college. He wants to try to get his credits and so forth. But he said to me to me the other day, I bought him some clothes, and he said, thanks, Pops. He called me Pops. He said, thanks. He said, I won't feel so bad now because everyone in my class is so well dressed. And it just hurts so much as a dad because I wanted him to have everything you guys as kids have. And so he's in Austin now, and I'm hoping, whether it's Anon or Keith, I win a settlement of Tim Cole that I can put him in college like he deserves.
Listening to Kerry Max Cook was truly powerful. Imagine being released over 20 years ago, yet still carrying the weight of a nightmare that never truly ends. Today, Kerry not only fights for his own justice, but for his son's future, and as he puts it, for a better world for us and our children. I'm in touch with Kerry, we write to each other, and I'm hopeful he will agree to share his story here on this podcast and YouTube channel. I've already had the chance of interviewing Pamela Perio, who has become a friend. If you haven't watched her episodes, please take a moment. Her death row story is nothing short of incredible. Though Pamela and Kerry's journeys are different, both reveal stories that need to be heard. Thank you for helping us reach a new milestone in YouTube subscribers. I've also created a Facebook page where you will receive updates on new episodes as soon as they are released. Death Row Stories is also available as a podcast, which is in many ways the perfect format to experience these stories. It was created for this medium from the start. Please continue sharing these voices. Together we can ensure they are heard far and wide. Thank you.